What's going on, Heroes Guild, and welcome to Minecraft, a perfect game for what I think is going to be a very different video on the channel, but also a incredibly important one as well. So Minecraft is going to be perfect to take a back seat this time, because today I want to discuss something that I don't believe any other gaming YouTuber has ever done before, and if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. Today, I am going to be talking about gender. And yeah, after that palm drop, any of you still watching this, let me kind of explain before you start trying to predict or trying to assume what I might be talking about. So first of all, I'm sure a lot of you are probably thinking this is, pretty ballsy for a white straight guy to be talking about, and you're kind of right. I'm terrified. But that being said, this is a reflective video and also an opinionated one. So if you have anything that you want to say about what I'm about to talk about, or anything you wish to talk about just in general, please feel free to either reach out or comment. Just please keep things friendly. If nothing else, I know not everyone's going to support this when I post it, but that is okay. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions, and I think as long as everyone keeps things friendly, that is good enough for me. So, a little bit about this. I took a course at my college called Gender in the Humanities, and it started out as a required course for my honors system that I'm in. I am required to take a course like that every semester, and that's how it started out. But I also found out that it was taught by a professor who I had my first semester of college, who was amazing at her job and at making the class engaging and just being like super nice, super understanding, just amazing professor. And so that made me excited to take the class, and she was unsure but really confident about teaching us about gender this semester, and I would say she did it well, like really well. Like I think I took away a lot, and that's what I'm going to be talking about, is just reflecting on what I've learned this semester and kind of how gender in itself has changed for me since the beginning. So let me just load us into a new game real quick and we'll get started. I am going to do survival, because I think it's kind of boring if I don't, but I'm gonna try to keep it not as difficult, just because I don't want there to be too many interruptions, because this is still important, and like I said, I am trying to keep this gender focused this time. But yeah, let's just get in it. Also, I apologize if my voice starts going out kinda. It's been a bit tired lately just because of the season. Okay, so looks like we spawned in a forest biome. This looks actually really good. This is nice for the start, because now I can get wood and stuff off the bat, so that's really helpful. So let me just, real quick, just get a couple things, and then we'll get started. Okay, I'm just trying to find a village around here if possible, because that'll just kind of get us settled in for the video, sort of. Finally! Okay, that totally didn't take all day or anything. Anyway. So, found a village now, so now we've kind of got a nice setup started. It is night now, so that kind of sucks, but it's fine. Okay, let us begin our actual discussion now. So, I kind of want to start, I guess, reflecting on probably my childhood experience first. And so, I didn't grow up in a very diverse environment, which meant that my knowledge regarding diversity as a child was very slim to none. But I also didn't really pay much attention either, so there wasn't much for me to have had either way. And I kind of regret that now after taking the class, but I mean, also, I guess I can't blame myself too much because, once again, I didn't grow up nearby it, so I wouldn't have really known. This. Anyway, but then I got to middle school, and in middle school, I began to notice it a lot more, and still didn't have like a huge understanding of it, which is probably why, like I was, ignorant sometimes and misunderstanding and just, not like as accepting, I guess, as I really wish I would have been. But it was interesting to see more diversity because people are starting to figure out who they want to be, starting to move into their friend groups, so they're all prepared to go to high school. And in high school, that's where things, started to pick up, and I started to really understand more. And so I found my friend group, my current friend group, amazing group of people, all beautifully diverse in their own way, and that doesn't include just gender, like that's a whole lot of other things. But so I met them through our theater program at high school, and I thought it was an amazing environment to be in because it was just very supportive. There wasn't a whole lot of, you have to be this or you have to be that. It was just, we were all accepting of who everybody was because that's who they wanted to be, and we just focused on how their personality is and how great it was to get to know somebody instead. And so I thought that was really beautiful to experience. And, and I learned, that there is differing opinions when it comes to these things and how much it can be hard for somebody to be who they want to be and fill that gap in their personal identity when it comes to high school, especially because, everybody's trying to figure out who they are, but they're also, getting all like cliquey and whatnot and getting into their own groups, and, things happen. Then, we moved on to college, and college was a huge leap in a way, I think, when it comes to the classes, as far as that goes. The people, it seems somewhat the same, and I just realized these pigs are following me. What the? Oh, you know what? It must be the crop in my hand. I didn't even think about that. Here. There we go. Anyway. Anyway, as I was saying, though, once we got to college, the classes it was a different kind of teaching, because even the classes that were simply requirements through my gen eds were actually full of amazing value that I just had to kind of look for and really pay attention to outside of just doing the class to get a grade. And there was a lot of stuff like that, I just didn't realize it because I was always so focused on just getting a great grade and then, making it past that class. I think sociology last semester was probably my first class that I really started to critically think when it comes to societal aspects, including gender, which makes sense because that's kind of what the class was for. But I'm not going to get into what I learned in sociology because that is a huge rabbit hole that, changed a lot of my perspectives, and it also was a lot for me to swallow, as an emerging adult, and it took a lot for me to make it through that class with great self-esteem just because it was a different learning process. But that's neither here nor there, so I moved on this semester and went into Gender and the Humanities, and the class itself was very nice to be in because everybody was very supportive and very accepting, which I was, hoping because, it's a Gender and the Humanities class. Like, you'd really hope it would be. But our teacher, wanted to talk to us before the class started and kind of explain, like, this is sort of difficult for her to teach just because of how much gender has changed within the past few decades, even, let alone the last just couple years in general. But she was going to try her best, and I do think that she did put forth her very best in teaching us, so I think that was really nice for us. And so getting into the class itself, I want to start with a discussion project that I did for the class, and it was gender in video games, which, pretty appropriate considering I'm a gamer YouTuber and I'm going to be playing one right now. So in the presentation, I talked about the stereotypes between, guy gamers versus girl gamers, and the disparity. I kind of listened to everybody in class and learned what they thought about it, and just kind of talking about their different stereotypes. I won't go into those right now because I don't want to give off the stereotype and somebody take it the wrong way. So there was that, and then I also talked about like representation in video games. Like, you've got your a lot of times you'll have a male protagonist in a lot of games, and every once in a while you'll get a video game that's got a female protagonist. It's just not seen as much, which is a shame, because I think a lot of the times when I play video games with female protagonists, it really adds something different. Maybe just because you don't see it as much, but I really don't think there should be a difference between the two so much, as it's just like, this is your protagonist, this is your game that you're playing, and this is the story. Like, just play through it. um but anyway, with that being said, I also finished by talking about video game rosters and how typically they're male dominated, though it kind of depends. Like, multiplayer games are bound to have a different type of roster. I talked about a couple of video games I play, like Baldur's Gate that I just started, which gives you great customization options to be either a male or female, or really anything in between. um and how rosters are starting to try to balance out like the mix between all of those. And I think it went well. I think everybody kind of got the message I was trying to put across with, video games. Like, it should just be something that, like, if you enjoy playing video games, then you should enjoy playing video games. Like, it shouldn't be anything, like you have to be like this or you seem to be like that because you play video games. Like, I just think playing video games is fun, and it doesn't matter who you play with. It is always going to be a experience. And I think I also just realized, how did I end up with 2 wooden axes? How did I do that? It doesn't matter. Um, but yeah, so I really like doing that project. Moving on, we did do a lot of reading this semester, which, it didn't come to a surprise because it is a literature class. So I was prepared for us to have to read. And there were quite a few books we read, but I only want to mention 2 that I thought really struck me. And the first one ties more into male versus female, gender identity, and roles. And it was a feminist manifesto of 15 suggestions for a young, well, I guess, newborn, girl, and her mother wanting to know, I got a flint and steel. But it's about a mother who wanted to have some advice from one of her friends who is a feminist about how to raise her daughter as a feminist. And so the 15 suggestions, while they were feminist centered, they were very important in that they taught us a lot about togetherness and being a full person, and about gender roles themselves and different interpretations of feminism. And it talked about the importance of reading and language, and it talked about biology and culture and identity and likability versus being nice, which that one really hit me, and I'll talk about that in a second. And it also talked about, romance and sex and differences and oppression, and it really hit a lot of important things. And it did it in a way that there was quite a few things I really had never thought about before that just kind of seemed like your typical, even just like the way you word some things, it's kind of interesting how that happens. But the suggestion regarding being likable versus being nice really struck me because, it is really easy to intertwine the two. And, sometimes you might think because you are, liked by a lot of people that you go along with like the popular opinion that makes you, a nice person, which, you might be. Like, that doesn't mean like you aren't automatically. It just means there really is a difference and sometimes it can be overshadowed just out of misunderstanding. But I digress. Then I want to talk about the other book, which was my favorite book this semester. Loved reading this book. It is called This Is How It Always Is by Lori Frankel. And it tells the story of a family, husband and wife, named Penn and Rosie. Penn is a stay-at-home writer, and Rosie is a doctor. And they have 4 sons, but they want to have a daughter too. And so they try for a 5th child, and they have Claude. And so Claude is biologically a male, but they are just really happy that he's healthy, that he came into the world, that they have 5 kids now. They're perfectly okay with him being a boy. But then the story changes, because at a very young age of only 5 years old, Claude decides that he wants to be a girl when he grows up and likes to wear dresses. And so it's really, really an interesting story, because, it tells how Penn and Rosie, like from the beginning, they want to do whatever they can to support Claude no matter what. And they want to show him that they'll love him no matter what choice he makes about his identity, but also trying to show him how society sometimes reacts to these things that they just aren't prepared for. And they originally try to keep him close to home, so that way they know he's in a place where he's going to be loved unconditionally without worrying about discrimination. But they learn pretty quickly that you can't just keep hiding that sort of thing. It's not good for Claude. It's not good for them, because they need to let Claude represent who he wants to be. And so it tells of Claude's experience at school, how the students view him, how his teachers view him, how his transformation kind of evolves throughout the story, and what both his parents and also his brothers think about it, because they obviously play a key role. And they always make it a point to remind their parents that while he will be loved at home unconditionally, that in public he will still be looked upon as different. But his parents are aware of that and still are trying their best to support them through this. And they have help. Like, they go see a very interesting man named Mr. Tongo, who is sort of, I don't know exactly how to describe him. I don't remember exactly how the book describes him, but he is a very eccentric fellow who works in the same place as Rosie, if I'm correct. I could be wrong. But he helps them out a lot, sort of as like a guidance counselor of sorts, almost. And so it was just a really beautiful book, I thought, because it addresses a lot of those questions that most parents will get when having a trans child and trying to help support them through everything. And I thought those were very helpful to me, just as, like a knowledge keeper for, one of these days when I end up having kids, and how that all will work, depending on how things go. And so I totally recommend this book. I didn't want to spoil too much about the actual story, because I want people to read it. If you have read it, please leave a comment, because I would like to know your thoughts on it. Without spoiling, of course. Please be mindful of those who haven't read it yet, and try to just kind of give your overall opinion on it. But yeah, I think that's everything from the class. So I'm just kind of give my final thoughts, as I'm kind of stuck here in this cave. I need stone tools too. I just realized that. Let me see. So I can make a crafting table, right? Hold on. Crafting table. Yeah, I keep losing my crafting table. It's because I just keep placing it down in random spots and then just not, taking it with me. One second. Light that up. Gonna dig some stone real quick. Sorry this is taking a second. I just wanted to do more than just kind of like bounce around and dig through blocks that I can't collect anything from because I don't have the right tools. Here we go. Stone pickaxe. That's really all we need. Okay. Yes, so, final reflection. So, really, I think, and I still have, much to learn when it comes to, diversity and gender and different, ideas on it. But from what I have gathered, I do think that when it comes down to it, letting people be who they want to be shouldn't be as much of an undertaking as it can be perceived as. And that's hard, like it's not easy for everyone to see it that way, and that's okay, It's just it's finding out how to accept that things are changing and that it will be a part of the world, because change has always been a part of the world and will continue to be so. And so I think as far as teaching future generations, I think education is like a huge important part of doing so, because in reality, like, that is what I think colleges or some classes in colleges, I should say, are trying to do, is trying to educate the new generation before they go off and start to make their own decisions, kind of what the world is like and what it is evolving into. And so I think that it's very important for students like us to kind of give off what we've learned from these classes and kind of explain how these classes have changed our perceptions and give our opinions on things, and just kind of let it, spread out, give people curiosity, let them learn for themselves, like dig deeper into these things that they might only see at face value at first, things like that. And I think as far as when it comes to younger kids, I think there's always a question of, okay, like, when are they just a little too young to be thinking about genders and the diversity within them? And I think that while to some extent you want to only explain to them so much when they're younger, I don't think there's a problem with letting them know that diversity is normal. And it is also a very common thing these days in the world. And just kind of giving them that idea that this is how the world is, and then letting them form their own like questions and ideas, and then showing them that they can be comfortable talking to you about them, so you can trade off the knowledge about it, like making sure that you give them what you know, so that way they can take that and advance it, so that way they're even more knowledgeable than you are as they grow. And I think a big thing is letting them grow up in a diverse environment. Like, I didn't do that, and so I learned very late, which is fine. Like, I've learned everything, or not everything, but I've learned more now, and I'm more aware of things now, which is a good thing. But, it's like, you don't have to go out of your way to explain to your kids that this is all happening. And, everybody's got a different parenting style, which is perfectly fine. But, it's like giving them that exposure might be a good thing for them to start out with. And then if they ask you questions, then think about how you're going to answer them, but don't forget to answer them. Like, if you need to take some time of the way you want to formulate how you're going to explain to them this unique thing that we call gender and diversity, then that's fine, because it's a complicated subject, and you want to make sure you explain it in a way that is, it coincides with their age, to where they still know things, but you're not confusing them too much. And you're also not overgeneralizing either. It's, like I said, it's a tricky business, of course, which that's kind of everything, though, as you're, helping a kid grow up and learn who they want to be. And, it's one of those things where the parents also wonder, how young is too young for them to try to make a decision on their gender. And I think it really, really depends situationally. But I think if you give them a good grasp early on of what it means to have a gender and what it means to want to be a certain gender or a certain sexuality or just a certain person, that you let them know what that entails but you let them know in a way that is constructive and informative, and not trying to shy them away from it. You're just trying to give them the better knowledge about what it means to be, diverse. And when it comes to like content, like the internet is such a huge influencer today, and about like changing like how and what they are exposed to can really change their way of thinking. And I think a lot of it that you can help with is, well, for one, obviously kind of like keeping an eye on the content they're getting, but also helping them through and kind of showing them like it's okay to have questions, it's okay to ask about something that they've seen online and kind of explain some things, because that is all part of their social lives, and it's just going to get more and more integrated as time goes on. And so giving them that connection with it now is definitely not a bad thing. It's just making sure you do it in a way that they're going to understand. And, I think the focus should be less on, like how young is too young for gender, and more how young is too young, just period. Because you can have, diversity in the content that they see, so that way they learn, but still make sure the content is appropriate for their age, you know what I mean? Like, it's totally fine for them to want to learn about diversity and how the world kind of runs around the idea, but the content itself is, if it's a little too mature, then that's just how that is, and it's kind of watching what they see. But like I said, it's kind of a tricky business, but I mean, like, what is easy though, really? Like, it is just something you have to think about, because life it's not easy. And if it was, like, people would get along more, there wouldn't be as much conflict, everybody would be successful, just all these things. And it would be different for everybody what they could consider easy. But I think, from what I've learned, that childhood and having children in general is not easy. Like, I have heard from almost everybody I've heard from say that it's not easy. And, that just happens. And that might not be everybody, but still, the consensus from what I've gathered is childhood and having children is not an easy task. So I feel like it kind of renders taking the easy way sort of unrealistic, because if, when it comes down to it, what is more important than giving your child unconditional love for them wanting to be who they want to be? And again, that is my opinion. If you have an idea of what you believe is more important than that, then that is completely fine. I want to make that clear right now. But that is my opinion on it. And I think that letting children be who they want to be, so that way they learn how to express themselves openly and uniquely in our world, is going to be a great start to letting diversity flourish and letting our world just remain a beautiful, diverse place that hopefully will just keep getting more diverse. And I think that's pretty much everything. I found diamonds, by the way, which I thought was kind of funny because I wasn't even looking. But I think this is a good place to end off. I want to thank you all very much for watching this and hearing me out. Again, if you have any opinions on this, feel free to comment. Just please keep things friendly. I want to give a special thank you to my professor at the university. I won't name drop her just in case she doesn't want to be, but I do want to thank her very much for being a very kind and accepting person, and being so open to take on this difficult and complex concept that is gender, and expressing us to us in a way that we've all learned so much and have developed such intricate feelings and perspectives on. And yeah, I think that's about it.